One of the biggest things when we're trying to increase our productivity, when we're trying to increase our discipline and focus so we can get the job done, get the work done every single day, is creating emotional stamina. Because you can have the best productivity plan in the world, but if you can't handle your emotions, you're not going to stay disciplined. You're not going to stick to your schedule. And if something outside of your control comes in, it's going to kick your emotions into haywire. Productivity goes out the window and you just don't get it done. And all of a sudden, shit hits the fan. So what impacts our emotional stamina? Well, there's negative conversations, there's personal relationships, there's, poor sleep, poor training, and poor nutrition. We're going to focus more so on the negative conversations and personal relationships on this video right now, because, sleep and nutrition is a whole nother kettle of fish. So when we're looking at this, your personal relationships, when negative conversations, they can shift us into a poor or a lower state. They give us negative energy. So if you're having an argument with your partner, or if you're having a crucial conversation with a staff member, they're coming at you with their perspective, that can shift you into a different energy state. And if we're in negative energy states, we have different energy or different focus when we're coming into it. So just think, last time, if you've ever had an argument with your partner, you had it on the morning of work, and then all of a sudden you go to work and you can't focus, you don't get the job done, you're constantly distracted about that negative conversation you had earlier. Well, that's negative emotional stamina. So understanding our negative emotional states, there's anger and frustration, there's sadness, there's despair, there's annoyance, there's rage. And we have our positive emotional states that increase our focus. There's hope, there's joy, there's gratitude, there's pride, there's inspiration. So when we're looking at this, it always reminds me of two of Viktor Frankl's quotes, right? So one of his quotes is, "Between stimulus and response lies a space. And in that space lies our freedom and power to choose a response. And in our response lies our growth and happiness." So that's his first quote. And his second quote is, "Everything can be taken from a man except the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's own attitude or choose one's attitude in any given circumstance, to choose one's own way." So these two quotes, when I package them together, what I sort of come up with is, it helps me understand that there is a stimulus, that negative conversation, and there is a response, my response, which is my emotional response to it, and my actions tend to follow my emotions that I'm choosing. So if I can expand the gap between stimulus and response, I have the power, when I look at the second quote, I have the power and the freedom to choose one's own attitude in any given circumstance. So expand the gap, negative conversation, or where I used to take a negative emotion and start to go back and forth, I have the power to choose to expand the gap between stimulus response and choose my own way, which is a more of a positive emotion that we talked about before, and harness that power between the stimulus and response to choose the best way forward for me so I can increase my emotional stamina and I can take it higher. So if I'm having an argument with my partner, I can expand, stimulus and response. I can choose gratitude. So inside gratitude, if I unpackage that, I have perspective and I have empathy. So I can have perspective and start to see it from her side of the fence on what she's looking at this situation. I can have empathy for how she's feeling, then I can diffuse the conversation, and then I can move forward with my day and the argument's not there. And it's the same when we're looking at anything. We can only ever control us. We can't control the world. We can't control the outside events that are happening to us. We can only choose how we react to those. So when we're understanding that our whole goal in life is to protect our emotional stamina, which will protect our discipline, protect our focus, and protect our productivity so we can get the job done, is to protect the way we respond to external stimulus. So that's when we have to start to look at the triggers that push us out of whack. So what I want you to do over the next 7 days, get a note section in your phone or get a notepad. And when you start to have triggers that push you into those negative emotions that I said earlier, anger, frustration, sadness, despair, annoyance, or rage, I want you to write it down. Like maybe it was a confronting conversation with a staff member. It could be arguing with your partner, someone cutting you off in traffic. You're going to have like 5 to 10 things that are going to cause you to move into a negative emotional state, which will push you negatively in your emotional stamina. I want you to write these triggers down. And then what I want you to start to look at over the next 7 days, so over the following 7 days, is you want you to write down the trigger. I want you to write down that negative emotional response. I want you also to write down the old outcome or the outcome that happened from that. Well, I start to argue back with them. And then you start to, go down that sort of cascading effect. What I want you to do now, so first step, write down the trigger. Second step, write down the old emotional response. Third step, I want you to write down the old outcome from the emotional response. Fourth, I want you to write down the new emotional response you're going to choose from now on. Fifth, write down the new outcome that's going to happen from your new emotional response. This is like a 5-step conscious awareness so you can start to shift and protect your emotional stamina. And if you can do these 5 steps for the 5 to 10 things that are decreasing your emotional stamina, and we can start to expand that gap, and we can start to move forward, because next week when these triggers arise again, well, now we have a 5-step plan. We know consciously how we used to act. We know how it created a negative state from us and distracted us and decreased our productivity because of the emotional stamina. We know the way we need to choose now and the new emotion I need to choose, a new response I need to choose. And because of that, I can move forward and I can protect my energy on a daily basis. So when the trigger happens, I want you to breathe in. Breathe in for 3 seconds. Breathe in. I want you to hold for 3 seconds. I want you to breathe out for 3 seconds. So you got about a 10-second gap between stimulus and response. And then with that, I want you to now choose your new way of reacting. And each week, I want you to work on becoming better and better at changing your response to these triggers. And every single week, your focus and your emotional stamina will get better for it, and your productivity will increase.